Okay, let's do this video.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there is an objective truth, and I don't believe in his truth, her truth, their truth, my truth. Like, there is truth, and
who defined that truth?
And like, it's already defined. And as a Christian, I believe God is the one who set truth.
But who defined that?
Is the truth?
Can you tell me who defined that?
I don't understand why people try and add their religion into this. Like, you believe in your religion. Why are you so cocky to think everybody else believes in your religion, lady? Please. This is what I mean about these issues. It's like so many times people have these weird arguments when you could just go with a logical argument. Instead, you're going about doing stupid things like talking about your religion that nobody else believes in but you. Okay? So, that's stupid. Try again.
God. Living in the Bible Belt with religion taking center stage, it's hard for a lot of trans and non-binary folks like myself to really be able to express who they are. I had to really take on my gender dysphoria in private. I couldn't talk to my mom about it. I couldn't talk to my dad, my siblings, because ultimately I felt like it wasn't going to lead to anything because there wasn't a lot of education in the cis community like there is in the trans and non-binary community. We're talking about a book that was written by men.
You mean brainwashing, indoctrination, and group thinking, basically, which is so annoying. Like, I can understand you're talking about religion, and there's a lot of that with certain religions where, they have a lot of brainwashing and all that stuff, you could say, because everyone believes the same thing. Well, you might think it's true, and it depends on the religion, and your beliefs, but you basically have the same thing, and you can't assume that all cisgender people, actual people who are just not trans, are having a situation where we do not baby stop sorry guys. Anyway, but we don't all have a situation where we are all focusing on religion, and that's why we have certain beliefs. Okay, so basically, let's continue.
With his own bias?
Who created chromosomes? Yeah, I'm personally not religious, and I believe in science.
When we talk about chromosomes, it goes back to the conversation we were talking about earlier about being intersex.
So we're not talking about...
This is so weird with these people. They'll talk about intersex people. You are not an intersex person, are you? Your chromosomes aren't female or both sexes. Your reproductive organs aren't both. If you are intersex, you can't be transgender. And in this conversation, somebody tried to swap intersex with trans. If you're really intersex, you're not transgender. You can't be. It kind of makes sense why you can't be. Because if you're having gender dysphoria over the surgery that somebody did to try and make your body look more like a sex that it naturally does not look like, obviously you're not having gender dysphoria. You're having, maybe, I guess, like, for grown adults, they would call it buyer's remorse, basically, for cosmetic surgery. For a child, it's just being a victim of botched surgery that you didn't even agree to, which is really sick. Who the fuck is sexualizing a child? But I'll get to that when it comes to it. My point is with this is that this person is not intersex. You're not talking about intersex people when you talk about transgender people. You're not. Because transgender people are literally struggling with the fact that they're of the male sex or the female sex. We're talking about trans women here, I guess, because that's mainly who's talking that's not of the women's side. So I'm going to just say it's trans women. So to me, I just think that, if that's the case, then, I don't understand why people have this thing where they're like, they think that, like, that, people who are, for example, intersex, that's going to correlate with transgender people. It's always been the same anyway. If you talk to a lot of intersex people, they say that they get a lot of hostility from transgender people. I'll admit, yes, I've seen that happen several times. So I kind of find it really weird that people say that, intersex people are related to transgender people, when if you really look at it, most of the time it seems like transgender people actually hate intersex people. There's a small sector of the trans identifying group where they'll be like born once, like they're not born that sex, but they're reared a sex, and then they'll identify with the other sex, and they'll think that they want to identify with transgender people, but it's like it's not really the same thing, because your biology is telling you that you are a female because, well, you are partly female. So is it really a shock that you feel like a female when you literally are a female partially? That doesn't make, like, the whole point of being transgender is you have no physical reason to think that you are a female in the case of trans women. If a trans woman was female to some extent, then there's obviously a reason why the person feels that way. Then it's no longer gender dysphoria and you're no longer transgender. So you're saying this about having to do with transgender people. It's quite the opposite. Many of the things, not everything, but many of the things that are fought for intersex people are in quite opposite direction to transgender people. Transgender people hate their bodies. Transgender people hate themselves more than anybody hates them, okay? Now, intersex people are hated by a lot of different people sometimes. You can see this. You can see this, honestly, with the groups of people who are against transgender people. Many of the time when they start talking about intersex people, you see their hate. And it's crazy, honestly, because it's like, I can understand you having an issue with transgender people. How are you having an issue with intersex people? I don't even understand why someone would have hate against intersex people who have in history made issues with biological women with competing, in the sense that obviously none of those situations were intentional. It's usually a situation where someone doesn't know they have that condition and they are raised a female, so then that's why they compete that way. And then when they find out they can't compete, that is the problem. The problem is more so that they worked this hard to get to a place, and then they didn't even realize they're not even allowed to compete. And then on top of it, not just not compete, the fact that a lot of the time these people are not allowed a section to compete in. Like, okay, you can't compete with women, but shouldn't you be able to compete with somebody else? After all that hard work, But it's even in those situations, it's like, it's not intentional. If someone actually knew someone was intersex before actually trying to, compete and stuff, they wouldn't compete probably in sports like that, So you couldn't even say you're angry at that, but you see a lot of anger towards intersex people. And the thing is a lot of the time, people who are fighting in favor of intersex people's rights, they're fighting against the mutilation of intersex people's bodies before they can say stop physically. Like, literally, they can't say stop yet because they're babies. They're that young. They probably can't even lift their heads up yet. And you're trying to do genital surgery on a child, which is really, really sick. Who's sexualizing a child? Like, for real. So, I mean, like, intersex people have the opposite issue. Now, there are some intersex people who, like, because of the binary of sex that people like to put everybody in, there's a lot of different intersex people who are being put in the female category or male category erroneously, even though, like, they might not be genetically a male or a female. Or, they may have hormones that imply that they're not male or female. So it's telling you that this person doesn't operate the same as other males and females because they aren't a male or female, they're both. And then that causes issues because the binary is a problem. the binary itself is a problem to intersex people. I don't think the binary is a problem to transgender people because they live by it so strongly. This is why they think that they're female. Trans women think they are female because they come up with stereotypes of women and they come up with ideas of women based off of the gender binary. And so then they say that they must fit into the female category and that they are women because of it. When you're intersex, you can identify as either sex, but more so the problem is the existence and just having your body as is to a lot of medical professionals and a lot of people against the binary itself. This is literally against the binary, and it really bothers them, and that's why they hate them actually more than transgender people many of the time. It's just transgender people, they like to tell transgender people what to do. I personally don't care how transgender people act or what they do to their bodies. You want to destroy your body, that's cool. It's just like, don't tell me that you love yourself, okay? Don't tell me you're trying to find yourself when you're literally trying to hide yourself. You're trying to take the surgery, you're trying to take hormones, you're trying to even change your own voice. You can't even speak normally because you hate yourself. Every trait you have to skew in one way or another. I've seen some people who said on the trans men side where they were sticking things in their pants because they didn't have penises. They were putting things in their shoes, trying to wear extra socks, trying to wear gloves. It's just crazy. Everything bothers you about yourself because you freaking hate your body. Nobody hates transgender people more than transgender people hate themselves. So it is not the same thing. Transgenders have an issue of personal problems, personal demons, personal struggles. That's what they have. Intersex people have everyone else, like basically societal demons, societal problems. Basically, it's not a personal issue where like they're doing this to themselves. Someone else is doing this to them and they don't want it done to them because many of the time people struggle with many of the procedures done after being intersex and, having their genital surgery that's like supposed corrective surgery, which it isn't, is changing their body for what they probably would not appreciate, just because someone else feels uncomfortable with how their body is naturally. So, it's a societal issue there. Transgender people have an issue of they don't like how their body is. It's a personal issue. So it's opposite problems. They want the opposite thing to happen to them in many cases. The things that people are fighting for, basically. Now, no one's saying that intersex people can't get surgery, by the way. I'm not saying that. I think, if you're a grown, adult, intersex person and you want to do whatever you want to do to your body, you want to do that. But everyone wants the right to have that choice to figure out what they want to do when they're grown up and they're adults instead of have other people decide for them, Anyway, continue.
Intersex, we're talking about people who were born as a male and they try to transition. The whole fact that they're trying to transition into a female in the first place shows that they aren't actually that or else there would be no need to transition, right? So
yeah, exactly. If that's a major part of why transgender people have a lot of anger and hate towards a lot of intersex people and female people, because they wish they had a female body, obviously, and instead they resort to surgery. And it's like it goes against what they're saying, because if you really pay attention to how they say that they are by gender female but by sex male, right? But what your efforts are in this transition is changing your body, which is your sex, which you're going to fail at because you can never change your sex. Your chromosomes are always going to be the same. Your sex organs, well, you're never going to get ovaries. You can make yourself sterilized, but you can't actually transition your sex organs to another set of sex organs. You can't change your body structure even. You can see that their bone structure is basically the same as their their same-sex counterparts, basically. Anyway, continue.
Okay, I feel like a woman. What is that? What does that feel like?
Yeah, how does it?
And how do you know?
I'm not saying I feel like a woman. I am a woman.
So then why did you transition? Why can't you just present as a man, but...
Okay, so first off, saying that I am a woman and not that you feel like a woman means you are, I think, a bit detached from your actual reality of actually being a male, sex-wise. If you're not able to admit that you're of the male sex, don't you see how much you hate yourself that you can't even admit the properties of your own body, the genetic properties of your own body, because you hate everything it stands for, everything that it is? Why do you have such a deep-seated hate for your physical body and your gender and your sex? Why do you have such hate for your sex? And I think there needs to be more of a deeper delving into the psychology behind why do you have such a negative view towards the male sex? Because something's wrong there, obviously. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with the male sex. There's nothing wrong with the female sex. There's nothing wrong with the intersex. There's nothing wrong with any of the sexes. Whatever you're born is what you're born, and you can't change it. And having this kind of self-hate is not healthy. Now, on the other thing of presenting as a man, as she said, that's silly to say that to someone, okay? It's silly to say, oh, you should just present as a man. Well, if we're really dealing with the logic of what they're actually saying, it's not really that. They don't have to present as a man. They could say they're a woman. They could use a female name. They could be themselves more by using a feminine name, by wearing feminine clothing, by acting very feminine, being themselves, But being themselves is not getting plastic surgery to hide their bodies and hide their image and everything that they see in the mirror. Transforming themselves is obviously a sign that you don't like yourself and you hate yourself. So it's just like, to me, like, I don't understand with these situations why these people try to come up with this idea that, and basically they think that, specifically that, they feel like they're trying to be themselves, or this is more of who they are, or trying to present this to other people, when we can see full well you will take hormones for the rest of your life to continue the image that you have. And once you get off those hormones and your body is its natural self, it's the moment you don't like yourself. So you don't like yourself. You like estrogen, you like breast implants, you like penile inversion surgeries and procedures, but you don't like yourself, clearly. Without all of that, you don't like yourself. You don't like who you truly are. And I mean, no one who didn't hate themselves would put themselves through life-threatening surgeries over and over again, and risk their life and their health by putting themselves through all these procedures only because they don't like what they see in the mirror. Only because they don't like themselves. This is deep, true self-hate. That's just the truth.
Be a woman.
I transitioned so I could be who I was. I did not feel like I was the person that I identified with when I was born. So I took the steps to...
So you feel like you transition to become who you want it to be or whatever, or that doesn't make any sense. You are having a dissociative moment. You don't identify with who you were at birth. So you think that you are not the same person as you were at birth when biologically you are. The fact that you can't admit to having the identity of who you actually are throughout your life, and you are trying to basically cut it off, seems like it's a dissociative situation. You may be traumatized. You may have some kind of PTSD situation where you cannot put your memory past a certain point to identify with yourself. And maybe that's because of some kind of trauma you've dealt with males. And that's why you internalize it on yourself. You know, it's a common thing, it seems like, with these people, like they have hate towards their sex. You know, and they don't want to actually address it. It's really weird because it's like it must be painful to live inside a body that you so badly hate. Don't you want to mull that over and try and cure it and get better instead of running from it and actually indulging your own self-hate of yourself? Don't you want to be at peace with yourself? Like, honestly. Anyway, continue.
Align my outside body with how I feel on the inside. What makes you stand up every day?
Yeah, you can have your body and how you act is just you. You do get that. Like, people act different ways and they look different ways. And there's no set way to look and act a certain way. You get what I'm saying? So you can have any personality you want. And you can have any body that you have. You know, you don't have to contort your body into fitting an image that you feel society will accept. Because, honestly, this whole thing, I feel, is your cry out for expecting others to accept you when you've already rejected yourself. How do you expect others to accept you when you've rejected yourself? And you have screamed to the world that you've rejected yourself. And that, honestly, like, how do you expect us not to see that you rejected yourself? You cannot look at yourself in the mirror in your natural body as your natural self, as your true self, and your body, and in how you act. Both ways, I'm saying. Because you reject what you are. You reject who you are. You reject your body. Like, you talk about people being open-minded, educated, and more accepting, but you need to be accepting of yourself before you can expect others to do the same. Anyway, continue.
And make you identify as a woman. Let me challenge you on that.
I am a woman, and I don't like being called a cis woman because I'm not a cis woman, I'm a woman.
When it comes to women and all that, it's weird because it's like, well, these women have accepted themselves for who they are. You don't understand that because, like I said, you haven't accepted yourself. So these women have accepted everything they are, their personality and their body together. They're at peace with both sides of them. And many of these women may not be that feminine. Many of these women may be masculine. That's how women are. Many women are masculine. And they accept themselves for everything that they are. You need to take that step to do that for yourself. But you can't do that because you don't understand what self-acceptance is. Anyway, continue.
I'm not a birthing person, I'm a mother.
So get mad at the terminology, not at trans people.
It's your new terminology.
But this is what I notice a lot of cis women do. The terminology has been around for so long. Cis is a prefix. Cis means same. Instead of getting mad at trans and non-binary people for using updated terminology, get mad at Webster. You're not going along with the times and being educated on the different pronouns.
It's not about education or anything stupid like that. What it has to do with is the fact that you can't fucking control what other people say. I mean, like, if we are talking about this is so weird. How have we gotten to the point where this trans is literally trying to tell other people what words to use to call themselves, to call others, or whatever the fucking word they want to use in their life and how it comes out in their mouth? Like, why are you trying to dictate what everyone else says? Focus on what you're saying, okay, ma'am? Like, you shouldn't be focusing on what other people are saying. we came from this point where specifically people would tell this trans that, they gotta, have this kind of like idea of calling themselves a man, and people were telling them they were a man and to call them a he, and now you're going about telling others what to call themselves, others what to call others. It's your right and your freedom of speech to call yourself whatever the heck you want to call yourself. But you can't try and infringe on other people's right to freedom of speech in calling themselves whatever they choose to call themselves. That being, if they want to call themselves a woman and not a cis woman, that's none of your gosh dang business. It isn't. I mean, if you don't want it to be anyone's business about you calling yourself a trans woman, a woman, or whatever the hell you want to call yourself, then obviously it's not your business what others call themselves. It's not even your business what people call you. It's only your business what comes out of your fucking mouth. So know your fucking place, bitch.
And the different identities.
You have to admit, some of the pronouns are kind of ridiculous. I mean, with all due respect, I mean, I'm sure you have to agree some of the pronouns.
I don't think they're ridiculous. I think they're very expansive. Trans and non-binary people just want you to respect their chosen pronoun. We are not trying to force pronouns on you. Just understand that the terminology is going to continue to grow.
Like I said, I don't think anyone has to use any pronoun for anyone. That is a matter of freedom of speech. You can't control what someone else uses as a pronoun for someone else. Or you, for that matter. You can call yourself a woman. You can call yourself a she. You can call yourself a her. That's how you feel. And you can surround yourself around people who will respect that. But other people have every right to call you whichever pronoun they fucking choose to call you. That's just the truth. It is what it is.
If you're willing to educate yourself and understand, then you've got it.
The ability to give birth is a woman's greatest strength. Can the disagreeer step forward?
Everybody.
The Jameson Desk Decoy, a totally legit way for you to take your SBTO this year.
I'm not able to have children, so I'm still strong. I'm funny. I'm physically strong. I'm smart, and I have a lot of strength. I don't believe that having a baby is the greatest strength, because not all of us can. I cannot have kids due to medical issues from a medical procedure that I had when I was younger, and it's a hard subject to talk about. It doesn't mean I'm any less of a woman, but can we get another question? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
One of the things that I regret was the fact that I would never be able to do that. But I was honored in the ability to participate it from the other side. Women are amazing. They don't just deal with that. So.
While giving birth is not a woman's greatest strength, I do think that only biological women are capable of going through that process and bringing life into the world.
Well, for one, that's not completely true. Actually, intersex people can also get pregnant, so, But I think the way I view giving birth is, well, I always say conception and becoming pregnant naturally, because I guess I'm very technical, so I think in very different realms. Sometimes I look at very anecdotal situations to some people, 1 in 100,000 people, and so forth. But generally speaking, someone who is a biological male, cannot conceive a pregnancy on their own. Someone who is a genetic male cannot conceive a pregnancy on their own either. Conceive naturally, specifically their own child with their own ovary. They usually cannot do that. So, in my opinion, And I mean XY, male genetically only. Anyway, to me, I think it's interesting that, that's an aspect to it, that men are incapable of basically becoming pregnant or giving birth naturally, for the most part, or males for that matter. I don't really care. Like, when you say men, males, people who are, XY chromosomes, those type of people. But yeah, like, to me, I mean, like, it is something, but I don't really see that as something that is like the only thing that women can do, females can do. I don't think of it that way. I guess because I know that there are other people who can do that as well. But I also think that it is, like, I don't think that that's a defining factor for women. I think that being a female is a defining factor for females. So a defining factor is having XX chromosomes. A defining factor is having ovaries. Defining factor is having estrogen. A defining factor is things of that nature. I won't go into the the genitalia, because with genitalia, I don't really think it is, specifically because there are many conditions where someone can have more testosterone and therefore develop different types of genitalia. It's more so, I feel genitalia is more so a byproduct of your sex that is usually in line with the rest of your sex characteristics, but not always. But anyway, to me, those are defining factors to being a female, is, female chromosomes, female sexual reproductive organs, things of that nature. And it doesn't matter if you actually have kids or not. That's beyond the point. Anyway, continue.
To push back on that, because we're also forgetting that trans men and trans masculine people can also give birth as well.
And those people are, guess what? Biological females. I don't understand. This person is one of those people you have to deal with kid gloves with. You can't actually deal with the truth. You can't actually say anything that is actually reality. Up is down and down is up for this one. Like, literally, you can't really have a real conversation with someone like this, because they're talking about females who are biologically female, and they want us to talk about them as if they're biologically male, when that is factually untrue. Anyway, continue.
And I don't think it's fair to just set it on one group that says that just biological women have that power to just give birth. And we have to be very clear when we look at the nuances of birth.
I recognize that there are people who have different identities. There are biological women who identify as men and then go on to give birth. I would argue, however, that those people are still biological women. And I know that is something that can offend many, but that stands as my belief.
So the correct term is actually...
Yeah, that's kind of obvious. It's like you can't even admit your own biology.
Cisgendered woman. Cis means same. It means that you identify with the birth that you were assigned. And so, I just really, really wish that we would kind of be a little bit more mutable to the terminology, because I think that's what really is going to open up that dialogue and that discussion.
If I may, I think the crux of the conversation kind of comes back to are trans women women? And I think if we don't agree there, it's going to be very difficult to kind of...
Yeah, I think it's like this. Everybody agrees that trans women are biological males, and everyone agrees that trans men are biological women. But some people have a hard time accepting that because, like, they have mental health issues. They have issues with loving themselves, accepting themselves, not rejecting themselves. This is what they have issues with. And since they reject that part of themselves, they can't admit that they are biologically male or that they are biologically female.
Keep the conversation going, or even agree on the points that you guys are talking about, because if we don't believe that trans women are women, then the conversation kind of ends there in terms of whether they're, like, men can give birth or not, if that makes sense. I'm not sure that's the case. I feel like the ability to give birth is not like the end all be all of a woman's like meaning and life and herself and her personality. And I think that if you can acknowledge that, I would also then maybe challenge the idea that womanhood, as opposed to like a female sex, like womanhood is a consistent thing that has always been one way. So how would you define womanhood?
The price of what? All these butchers have raised down to $2.59. Why is no one jumping on such a low?
You sound like Matt Walsh.
It's a good question.
Womanhood, to me, is about standing in integrity. It is about being confident in who you are. And me, as a Black trans woman, should not be a threat to you. And what I see from a lot of
I don't understand. Why can't you do all that as a person who is accepting and loving and appreciating your biologically male body? I don't get why can't you do all of that and still love yourself. I don't get it. It's got nothing to do with actually your body. You started talking about behaviors. Well, you can have that behavior just fine without injecting hormones that are foreign to your body, or getting breast implants, or inverting your perfectly functional genitalia. You can love your body for what it naturally is and how it naturally functions, and also have that integrity and that sense of commonality with other women. But I do think that a lot of the time with a lot of women, I don't think that specifically there is a specific type of behavior that women have, or a specific type of thought process that women have. That is a misogynist view of women in itself. Thinking that you think like a woman, that you view things like a woman, is misogynist. It's misogynist especially against women who do not think like women. Like the stereotype of a woman, basically. Like, to me, it's insulting. And I think primarily the idea of thinking like a woman goes back to the whole digit ratio and the expression, the influence of testosterone in the womb, or estrogen in the womb. And because of that, there are plenty of females who are more influenced by testosterone. And therefore, the way we think is going to be very different than someone who is exposed to estrogen. So it's really weird to say that women in general think this way. That is misogyny in itself.
cisgender women is they're trying to deem what womanhood is supposed to look like. I have my own perspective of womanhood. We can coexist in the same world, but the reality...
No, you're actually saying what womanhood looks like. You're literally here trying to say that you changed your body by injecting hormones into your system, trying to, get breast implants, trying to get surgeries, to try and alter yourself to fit the idea of what a woman looks like. You could have embraced your body as it is and just call yourself a woman as is. Wearing feminine clothing, by the way. I'm not saying you have to be all masculine and rock hard, macho annoyingness. This is because I do find masculinity annoying. I'm sorry. That's just me. But, you don't have to do all that. You could be feminine. You could be your true self. But you don't choose to be because you hate your true self. And this is why you wear this costume. Anyway, continue.
We get so stuck on parts. Having a vagina is not the only thing that makes you a woman. I'm sorry. It takes integrity, it takes courage, it takes lifting other women up. It takes those things to begin to defy womanhood, and there's so many other different things.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And you could definitely do all of that while embracing and loving your body, your biologically male body, just the same. You could. I don't understand why you can't. Really odd. Why do you have to destroy your body and disguise your body and try and make it look like something that it doesn't naturally look like because you want it to look like your idea of womanhood? And you accuse other people of doing this, but it's all you doing this. It's just projection at this point. You know, if you actually took a page from your points and what you're saying, you would let your body just be and let it function as a normal, biologically male individual who is very feminine, who presents themselves very feminine, who prefers female pronouns for that matter. And many people who would respect your identity would actually call you by that. The problem is you're trying to please people who don't see you as a woman. You're trying to convince people to see you as a woman. That's why you have to change your body, because you feel like people won't take you seriously and they will call you a he. So then you do things to destroy your body to please others. This does not seem like you are emotionally healthy. Anyway, continue.
Okay, so if I were a white person and I said blackness is about integrity and courage and kind of the same thing that you used to define womanhood, and then I said I want to transition into a black person and I'm white, and I'm redefining what blackness is to fit what I view it as, right? There's no objective reality of what blackness is. Would you consider that appropriation, or do you think that's something I should be allowed to do?
I consider that dodging, and I consider that comparing apples to oranges, because race and gender identity are two separate different things.
That is very true. Race and gender identity are very different. And race is very much, you know, it's really hard to even define blackness, honestly. Like, the people talking, I can admit, I can pretty much promise you, all the people talking have white in them. They do. They, like, literally are biologically part white. Even the dark-skinned trans woman is most likely part white. And somehow, that's still blackness, right? So blackness obviously incorporates whiteness. So blackness is not just one binary, because blackness can include whiteness. And whiteness can include blackness in some cases. Some people identify with white and they have black in them. You know, and some people identify with neither because they're equally both, or they just don't want to identify with either. You know, so it's kind of like, you know, it's much more commonplace for people to have black and white in them. I mean, all of the black population has black and white in them, and then much of the white population has black and white in them. So, like, literally both sides have the same races in them, yet they're trying to have different identities here. You see, it's like one of the same thing here. It's very murky, you know, like situation where you have some black people who have white skin and they identify as black, and you have some white people that are very dark skinned that identify as white. There is so much overlapping here, you know. But you don't have this with gender. I mean, well, not specifically gender, but sex. Sex specifically, we do have some people who are both sexes, yes. But the percentage of people who are both sexes is not very high, one. And female sex individuals are literally females. They aren't mixed with male. Male individuals aren't mixed with female. They are specifically male sex, female sex, and then there are some people in the minority who are both sexes. It isn't the same as specifically like race, because you can tell that a black person has black and white in them, and a white person has black and white in them. So they literally have the same races in them. It's just a construct that is made basically on the idea of what people have in their heads of a black person. This is always changing from country to country. But male and female are not changing from country to country. Every country knows the difference between male and female. Even deserted islands where people have never met other people, they still know what male and female is. But when we talk about black and white, it changes because it's not that concrete and it's not in a binary like that. There's plenty of other races besides black and white too. Are there other sexes besides male and female? No, we have male, female, and both. Do we have anything that's completely not male, not female, completely different from all of that? Not a mixture of the two, just completely out of left field. No, we don't have any of that. So it's like, we don't have any comparison here. A black person and a white person's body basically functions pretty much the same biologically. They're the same sex. They function the same. A male and a female function very differently. So down to biology, race doesn't matter, but down to biology, sex does. So you can't say that it's different in the sense where race is more concrete than sex. Race is only more concrete to racist people, but everybody else understands that race is not concrete at all.
Because when we look at race, we have to look at many, many different structures of what whiteness and white supremacy looks like and how white supremacy can be manipulated into other things. And what happens is the closer you are in proximity to whiteness, you're able to weaponize it against other people. It reminds me a lot of Rachel Dolezal, who, masqueraded as a black woman. It really did open up many more doors of conversations around it, but it's still wrong. It's still not fair because she will still ultimately have a privilege that I, as a black trans woman, would not begin to have.
What's interesting is that
And this is really interesting, honestly, because it's like, you're saying this about Rachel Dolezal, but Rachel Dolezal isn't any different than you. Rachel Dolezal saying that she's a black woman when she's white, which is, to me, like I said, most white people are white and black, so identity is stupid in itself. Just like black people, most black people are white and black. So what you're focused on, though, was white supremacy. But you don't want to focus on the fact that your whole premise is based in misogyny. So it's like, you talk about racism, but you don't want to talk about misogyny. The misogyny you use against women, biological women. The fact that you say that biological women all think this way. Biological women all act this way. All biological women have this type of brain. When we don't, you should understand that you have a certain type of brain. You might have found that you had some commonalities with some women. But you're not going to... Stereotyping all women is misogyny. Anyway, continue.
We're talking about race and gender, or as we probably like to call it on our side, sex. Race actually has a more understandable structure for people being transracial. Race does actually exist on a spectrum. I'm biracial. Many perceive me to be black, even though I am also half white and half black. We label people like President Obama as a black president, even though he is as well. Race has never had binary markers. It does exist on a spectrum. Gender, however, does have binary markers. As much as we try, as much as we change the way that we self-present, chromosomes are not going to change, and that's just a reality.
All right, I'm going to bring up a little point here because you talked about the binary side of gender. Well, I was born a little of both. I believe I've never had my chromosomes checked, but since I fathered two children, I'm assuming I have the correct male chromosomes. So I was intersexed, and there's a lot of reasons that happens, none of which are well studied or understood, but a friend of mine in the pediatric trauma world says about 1 in 150 kids come out with some degree of ambiguity in their gender. For me, that appeared as always feeling out of place. And for the first week of my life, I was in the surgical wards at, Naval Hospital in San Diego, getting pieces of me cut off. So, and then they gave me testosterone for the first 11 years of my life. I wish the world were truly sexually binary, it would make it so much easier. But there is a little bit of a smear, and as a trans person, I'm a very conservative trans person. I don't see the huge gender spectrum that a lot of people in the trans community do. Do I feel better having transitioned? Yes, absolutely. I used to live in a little shell, very large shell, but now I'm much more open about who I am. Is that the only thing that generally defines a woman? No, I don't think that is the only thing that generally defines.
To me, for thinking about intersex people, to me, I don't think that would be included with transgender people. What she is talking about, I think that's Jaina, is talking about basically going through being born intersex, having doctors mutilate your body, and then stick testosterone in your body until you mature into a supposed man. You're not biologically a male, one, because you can't be biologically a male if you are intersex, but then the problem you're saying dealing with like the issue of what you're dealing with is not specifically due to nature, is it? It's actually more of an issue pertaining to the fact that doctors kind of botched your body and then sent you on your way to live as a boy, when most likely that wasn't the route that you needed to be set on, basically. Which, honestly, it makes no sense. Why does anyone do surgery on children without asking them? And you can't ask them at that age, or even a little older for that matter. You can't ask them until they're full grown. They can't make a decision on this, and they should have the right to make a choice on which way they want to go, if they want to be a female or if they want to be a male. If they want to be a woman or a man, not specifically a male or female. I don't think people like that can be male or female, because they are both. But my point is you're talking about saying that sex isn't a binary. It isn't. No. There are people in the middle, but we're talking about transgender people, right? So transgender people are not people who were botched at birth and filled up with some hormones that they didn't agree to and put on a fast track to be something that their bodies didn't even, indicate they were. That's not what they are. They're literally male people, for trans women, male, biological males who nobody did anything. Their bodies just did it on their own because that's how their body is. Their body developed as a male and grew up to, a full grown male, which is a man. And, they didn't like how their body was, basically. So it's not like a situation what you're saying, and it's not about like a binary. They clearly fit as a male. They did everything fine on their own, developing into a man. One. And so it's not like they don't fit into a binary. They definitely do. They're 100% male. And so when we're talking about transitioning and things of that nature, no one is really caring about intersex people and what's going on with that situation. Really, literally, nobody gives a fuck. And I think, honestly, I care. But I think that a lot of people don't give a fuck about this. They don't care that, people get botched, people have their body parts changed and all that stuff. Nobody cares about that because their focus isn't on intersex people. Some people think it's wrong, some people think it's right, but nobody's really going to focus on it. Okay, so that's not what they're talking about. They're specifically talking about people who are born male from birth, and they develop into a man, and then they are stuck on the male binary because that's what they are. They're male. And then they are trying to use misogyny to stereotype women and say that this is what I am. An intersex person who decides after living as a man that they want to live as a woman is saying that they're partly a female too. So that's why they are a female. So it's not really a shock. It's like, any other person deciding to be a female who is a female. That's whatever. That's your own personal thing going on there. But we're talking about people who are born male, who are saying that I want to be what a woman is, and this is what a woman is. This is what a woman thinks, feels, acts like, and all these things, and that's why I'm going to be it. So that's all I have to say in this. It's like, when people use the intersex argument, I don't get why they use it. To me, it's like weird. It's like with transgender people, it doesn't apply. And any person who is claiming to be transgender and using the intersex argument for themselves, to me, it's like, well, then you just negated the fact that you're transgender. So what are you talking to me about? Like, obviously, nobody was talking about you. There's intersex babies being botched at birth. It's not the topic. It's not. As bad as that topic is, it's a terrible topic. That's not the topic. Somebody should address it at some point because it is a terrible thing. It's child abuse. It's sexual abuse, honestly, in my opinion. You're sexualizing a child in really weird, sick ways, honestly. But that's not the topic here. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like and subscribe, comment down below, and have a great day. Bye, guys. I'll do a third portion to this.